Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn the chapter Analysis of Data on Vegetation Studies. And today's topic is Computation of Crop Vegetation Biomass using satellite data. Crop or vegetative biomass of productivity parameters of crop is very important quantitative characteristics of crop condition and can to be an effective tool for forecasting yield capacity. We can obtain area distribution of this parameter using airplane or satellite measurements. Obtained data of biomass can be used as an input parameter in crop growth model and also directly used for forecasting the yield capacity of field, taking into account correlation between crop yield and biomass. The accuracy of this correlation depends on the accuracy of biomass retrieving values. Knowing the amount of the total harvest, the countries can easily determine their needs and also take stable decisions in their agricultural policies. Today, most of the developed countries indicate the importance of agriculture over the economy by taking the resources made surplus by increasing agricultural productivity as a key to economic development. As the technology takes part more and more in our lives, space technology gives us the opportunity to observe land and help us to predict very reliable and almost true information about the land use and land cover. These help us to predict about the amount and the quality of the harvest in a higher precision and quicker than terrestrial measurements. The use of remote sensing technologies over agricultural issues and integration with geographical information systems, complex analysis of the state and charges in the vegetation biomass help the country in increasing the amount and the quality of agricultural product. Remote sensing has evolved into an important supplement to ground observation in the studies of terrestrial vegetation. Remote sensing is the science and art of acquiring information about objects from measurements made at a distance without any physical contact with the objects. It is widely recognized that satellite remote sensing can provide an inexpensive, rapid, and effective method of data collection and production of various kinds of thematic maps. Simple ratio or ratio vegetation index. Vegetative index is described as a mathematical combination or transformation of spectral bands that accentuates the spectral properties of green plants so that they appear distinct from other image features. It is indicate the amount of vegetation or biomass distinguished between soil and vegetation. Vegetation indices based on accentuating the difference between red and NIR reflectance in image pixels. The ability to measure electromagnetic energy at varying wavelengths as it interacts with a material forms some of the foundation behind remote sensing and spectral science. The physical characteristics of the material cause the electromagnetic energy to be reflected or absorbed in a way that is unique to each material. These interactions are measured across discrete sections of the spectrum that when plotted from a unique shape that is also known as the material spectral signature. Vegetation interacts with solar radiation in a different way than other natural materials. The vegetation spectrum typically absorbed in the red and blue wavelengths reflects in the green wavelength, strongly reflects in the near infrared wavelengths and displayed strong absorbance features in wavelengths where atmospheric water is present. Different plant materials, water content, pigment, carbon content, nitrogen content, and other properties cause further variation across the spectrum. Measuring these variations and studying their relationship to one another can provide meaningful information about plant health, water content, environmental stress, and other important characteristics. These relationships are often described as vegetation indices. The SR is also well known and often used. It is described as the ratio of light that is scattered in the infrared range to that which is absorbed in the red range. The range of values is from 0 to more than 30, where healthy vegetation generally falls between values of 2 to 8. This index is a ratio of 1, the wavelength with highest reflectance for vegetation, and number 2, the wavelength of the deepest chlorophyll absorption. The simple equation is easy to understand and is effective over a wide range of conditions. As with the NDVI, it can saturate in dense vegetation when LAI becomes very high. Difference Vegetation Index. This index distinguishes soil and vegetation, but it does not account for the difference between reflectance and radiance caused by atmospheric effects or shadows. Difference Vegetation Index is sensitive to the amount of vegetation, distinguishes between soil and vegetation. It does not deal with the difference between reflectance and radiance caused by the atmosphere or shadows. Difference Vegetation Index is equal to infrared minus red. Normalized Difference Vegetation Index or Greenness Index. The Normalized Difference Vegetation Index is perhaps the most well-known and often used vegetation index. The Normalized Difference Vegetation Index is a simple but effective vegetation index for quantifying green vegetation. The Normalized Difference Vegetation Index normalizes green leaf scattering in the near infrared wavelength and chlorophyll absorption in the red wavelength. This index is a measure of healthy green vegetation. The combination of its normalized difference formulation and use of the highest absorption and reflection regions of chlorophyll make it robust over a wide range of conditions. It can, however, saturated in dense vegetation conditions. When leaf area index becomes high, the value of this index ranges from -1 to 1. The common range for green vegetation is 0.2 to 0.8. Normalized difference vegetation index is equal to infrared minus red divided by infrared plus red. The green gross domestic product is an index of economic growth with the environmental consequences of that growth factored in a country's conventional GDP. Greenness index is calculated by using the equation below. Greenness index is equal to green divided by red plus blue plus green.